You've been chasing this dream for years, maybe your whole life, and somewhere underneath all that effort is a feeling you don't let yourself say out loud. What if I get there and I still feel nothing? That silence you just felt reading that? That's what this is about. Because nobody talks about this. Everyone's selling you the dream. Build it, chase it, manifest it, protect it at all costs. And you believed it. I believed it. You're supposed to believe it. That's the whole system. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep grinding. Keep sacrificing the now for the later, and one day it'll all make sense. One day you'll arrive. One day it'll feel the way you always imagined it would. But here's what I've started to notice. Not just in my own life, but in people around me. People I've watched for years. The dream itself might be the thing that's quietly destroying you, not failing to achieve it. The dream. The way you hold it, the way it sits in your chest like a compass that makes everywhere you currently are feel like the wrong place. I'm not here to tell you to stop wanting things. That's not what this is. This is about something more specific, something I think a lot of people are carrying without realizing what it's actually doing to them. So let's start here. The moment you lock onto a dream, a real one, the kind you actually feel in your body, something shifts in how you experience your current life. And the shift feels motivating at first. It feels like direction. But look closer and you'll see what's actually happening. The dream turns everything that exists right now into a problem. Not a stepping stone, a problem. A sign that you're not there yet. A reminder of how far you still have to go. I remember the first time I noticed this in myself. I had a version of my life I was chasing, a specific feeling I associated with making it. And every single morning I woke up to the life I actually had, there was this low hum of dissatisfaction underneath everything. Not misery, just this constant, quiet signal that this isn't it. That I was in the waiting room, not the room I was supposed to be in. And the dangerous part is that feeling becomes normal. You stop noticing it. It just becomes the texture of your days, this background noise of not quite yet, not quite enough, not quite there. And you think that's just what ambition feels like. You think that's the price of wanting something. But it's not ambition. It's a dream eating your present life from the inside. Think about the last time you were genuinely, completely absorbed in what was right in front of you. Not because you were avoiding thinking about your goals, but because where you were was actually enough on its own. For most people chasing something, those moments are rare. And when they do happen, there's almost guilt attached to them. Like you're forgetting to suffer for your dream. That's not drive. That's a kind of psychological trap. And most people never even question it, because the whole culture around ambition tells you the suffering is proof you care. The restlessness is proof you're hungry. The dissatisfaction is supposed to be fuel. But what I've seen, in myself and in others, is that it doesn't work that way. The dissatisfaction doesn't stop when you achieve things. It just relocates. It finds a new address. Because the dream was never really about the destination. It was doing something else entirely. Here's what I mean. A lot of the time, the dream is functioning as an escape hatch, a mental exit from the present moment. When things feel hard or boring or empty, you go there, to the version of life where things are different, where you've arrived, where you feel how you want to feel. And it works. It gives you relief. It gives you a hit of something that feels like hope, but that's not building toward a future. That's using the future to avoid the present. And the more you do it, the more the present becomes a place you're always trying to leave. You're living in a waiting room in your own head, constantly staring at a door that hasn't opened yet, missing everything that's actually in the room with you. I spent a long time doing this. Not because I was lazy or delusional, but because the dream felt like the only solid thing. Like if I let go of it even for a second, I'd lose the thread. I'd become one of the people who just settled, who gave up. And that felt like the worst possible thing. So I held on. And holding on felt like discipline, felt like focus. But what it actually was an inability to be where I was. A constant low-level refusal to be present because the present didn't match the picture. And then there's the thing nobody warns you about. What happens when you actually get close? You'd think getting close to your dream would feel like relief, like warmth, like finally, but for a lot of people, and this happened to me, and I've watched it happen to others, getting close to the dream produces a very specific kind of anxiety, a dread that creeps in and sits right next to the excitement, because the dream was doing work. It was making all the emptiness feel temporary. It was the explanation for everything that felt off. I feel hollow because I haven't made it yet. I feel disconnected because I haven't arrived yet. The dream was the answer to every hard question about why things didn't feel right. And if you achieve it, if you get there, those questions don't have that answer anymore. The emptiness can't be blamed on not being there yet. And that terrifies people more than failing ever could. So they self-sabotage, or they immediately pivot to a bigger dream, a further horizon, something else to chase so the emptiness stays explained. Or they get there, feel nothing, and tell themselves they just need more of it. More success, bigger numbers, wider reach. Because the alternative, that maybe what they were chasing wasn't the actual problem, is too destabilizing to sit with. The dream protects you from having to face what's actually going on. And that's why losing it, or questioning it, or even just loosening your grip on it feels like threatening your own sanity. The dream isn't just a goal, it's a coping mechanism. It's doing psychological work that you might not even be aware of. Now here's the part that I think cuts deepest for a lot of people, and I've seen this wreck people who I genuinely cared about watching from a distance. Most people's dreams are fossils. Not metaphorically, literally. They were formed when you were a kid, 8, 10, 12 years old, maybe younger. You were small. Your world was tiny. Your sense of what was possible was built entirely from what the people around you thought was impressive, or what you saw on a screen, or what made adults light up when you said it. And you built a dream out of that. A picture of a life, or a version of yourself that felt big and real and important. And then you grew. You changed completely. You became a different person multiple times over. Your values shifted, your tastes changed. The things that actually make you feel alive evolved. But the dream didn't. The dream stayed frozen at that age. At that version of you who didn't really know who they were yet, who was building a future based on borrowed ideas and external validation, and the need to feel like they mattered to someone. And now you're years older, carrying this thing around like it's sacred, like abandoning it would mean betraying yourself, like questioning it would mean you gave up. But it was never really yours. It was built by a child who hadn't met you yet. I've watched people destroy their actual lives trying to become something a 12-year-old decided they should be. Burning relationships, ignoring what actually lights them up, spending years in fields that drain them, chasing credentials that mean nothing to who they actually are now, all in service of a dream that was made before they had any real information about themselves. And the grief of letting that go, of even questioning it, is real. I don't want to minimize that, because the dream became identity. It became the answer to who are you? It became what you told people at parties, what organized your effort, What made the sacrifice feel meaningful? Letting it go doesn't just feel like changing a goal, it feels like losing yourself. So people don't let go. They keep pushing, keep grinding, keep measuring themselves against this frozen image of who they were supposed to become, and every day they're not there yet is another day they're failing. Another day they're behind. But behind on what? On a race you never consciously chose to enter? On a version of success that was designed by a kid who didn't know what success actually felt like from the inside? That's what dreams do when you hold them too tight. They stop being direction and start being judgment. They stop pulling you forward and start making you feel like you're always behind, always insufficient, always in the wrong chapter of a story that someone else wrote. And here's where it gets really subtle. Even if the dream itself is something you still want, the way most people hold it makes them worse at actually getting there. Because when you're mentally living in the destination, imagining what it'll feel like, comparing your current reality to the version that exists only in your head, you're never actually present for the work. The work becomes an obstacle. The process becomes something to get through. Every day of building is just another day you're not there yet. And building anything real requires being genuinely in the process, not tolerating it, not white-knuckling through it, not gritting your teeth until it's over, actually being there, being present enough that the work itself has texture and feedback and its own kind of meaning. Because if you're always somewhere else in your head, you're doing the work badly, you're learning slowly, you're missing the information that the present moment is trying to give you. You're so focused on the image of the destination that you're running with your eyes closed. The people who actually build things, not just chase them, have a different relationship with the goal. It's more like a direction than a destination. It pulls them without consuming them. They can put it down and pick it back up. They're not living inside it all the time, using it to escape the present. They're actually here, doing the thing. And the direction just makes sure they're not wandering in circles. That's a completely different experience than what most people are doing. And it produces completely different results. So what does that actually look like in practice? How do you hold a goal without letting it eat your present life? I think it starts with honesty, real honesty. Not the kind where you convince yourself you're fine, but the kind where you actually sit with the dream and ask, is this mine? Did I choose this as the person I am now, with the information I have now, with the actual knowledge of what I value and what I feel alive doing? Or am I carrying something that was handed to me that I've just never put down because putting it down felt like failure? And that question is genuinely difficult to sit with. Because if the answer is that the dream was never really yours, that means the suffering you've done in service of it was a kind of mistake. And the ego does not like that. The ego would rather keep chasing the wrong thing than admit it was wrong about what the right thing was. But I'd rather know. I'd rather feel the discomfort of that honesty than spend another 5 years grinding towards something that doesn't actually belong to me. The second thing is about the present. Not in a spiritual, abstract way. In a practical way. The present is where everything actually happens. The future is just where you imagine things happening. And if the present is always a problem, always a waiting room, always something to escape or endure, you're not living in any real sense. You're waiting to live. Waiting for the version of life that finally feels right, and the version that finally feels right never comes that way. Because how you are here is how you'll be there. The person who can't be present now won't suddenly become present when they achieve the dream. The emptiness that you're using the dream to explain will still be there, and it'll still need an explanation, and you'll find a new one. The work isn't getting to the dream. The work is becoming someone who can actually be where they are, who can find something real in the current moment, not because the current moment is perfect, but because being alive in it is the only version of living that actually exists. Direction is real. Wanting to build things is real. Moving towards something is real and good and worth doing. But there's a version of that which is healthy and a version of it that's quietly destroying you. The difference isn't in the size of the dream or how hard you're working. It's in whether the dream is something you're walking toward or something you're hiding inside. Most people are hiding inside it. I was hiding inside it. And the cost of that, in presence, in actual experience, in the texture of daily life, is enormous. You don't even notice you're paying it until something cracks it open and you realize how much of your actual life you've been somewhere else for. The dream isn't the enemy, but the way you've been holding it might be. And the moment you're willing to look at that honestly, not to give up on wanting things, but to question what you're actually chasing and why, something starts to shift. The present stops feeling like a problem. The process stops being an obstacle. And the direction, when you pick it back up, feels lighter. More like yours. Less like a sentence you're serving. That's what I keep coming back to. Not the absence of goals. Just goals that are actually mine, held in a way that doesn't require me to be somewhere else to be okay. That's the version I want. And I think if you're being honest with yourself, it might be the version you want too. There's something else I want to say about this, because I think it gets missed in almost every conversation about dreams and goals. The people who seem the most driven from the outside are often the most imprisoned on the inside. The grind aesthetic, the no days off mentality, the constant posting about the vision and the process and the sacrifice. A lot of that isn't discipline. It's fear. Fear of slowing down long enough to feel what's actually there. Fear of sitting in the quiet and discovering that the thing they've built their entire identity around might not actually be the thing. So they keep moving, keep pushing, keep talking about the dream louder so the doubt can't get a word in. I've been around people like that. I've been a version of that. And there's an exhaustion underneath it that they won't let themselves acknowledge, because acknowledging it would mean stopping, and stopping would mean thinking, and thinking might mean questioning, and questioning feels like the first step toward losing everything. But you can't build a real life on that. You can build an impressive-looking one. You can build one that earns respect and generates envy and ticks every external box. But from the inside, it's hollow, because it was built in flight from something rather than toward something, built to prove rather than to live. And I think most people sense this somewhere deep down. That's why the question lands. That's why when someone says, "What if you get there and still feel nothing?" it doesn't just bounce off. It finds somewhere to land. Because some part of you already knows that the feeling you're chasing isn't actually attached to the thing you're chasing it through. The feeling exists. It's real. There are moments where life feels exactly the way you want it to feel. Full. Present. Like you're actually inside your own experience rather than observing it from somewhere behind your eyes. But those moments don't come from achievement. They come from presence. From doing something that's actually connected to who you are, with people or in places or through work that fits the shape of you as you actually are right now. The dream, when it's working, when it's real and yours and held lightly, points you toward more of those moments. That's what it's for. It's a compass, not a destination. And the compass is only useful if you're paying attention to where you actually are. So here's what I keep returning to, the thing that feels true every time I check it against my own experience. The goal isn't to stop dreaming. It's to dream in a way that makes you more present, not less. To want things in a way that makes the work itself feel like something, not just the obstacle between you and the version of life that actually counts. Because if the only part that counts is the arrival, you've already lost most of your life. The arrival is a moment. What comes before it? The years, the building, the ordinary days that make up the overwhelming majority of your actual existence. That's the life. And you get to choose whether that life is something you're actually in or just something you're passing through on the way to somewhere else. I spent too long passing through, and I'm not doing that anymore. Not because I stopped wanting things, but because I started wanting the right things in the right way, as directions, not as ransoms, as expressions of who I actually am, not as proof that who I am is enough. That shift, quiet as it is, changes everything about how you move through a day. And once you feel the difference, the old way of holding dreams starts to feel like what it always was, a kind of self-imposed exile from your own life.